Everybody, here we go. Welcome to the Sandbox Podcast. This is going to be a platform where we will learn how to lead well with other leaders. My back's feeling better, so it's going to be a good day. Everybody. Coming to you live from the good land, it is Tyler Richardson, and we are so pumped that you joined us today for the Sandbox Podcast. Happy New Week. Hope you're doing swimmingly. We are doing swimmingly, so we hope you are doing swimmingly. Things are good. The back is feeling like, we're probably at like a 72%, but, honestly, it was like at a 11% before, so I will take that 72% with bells on because it has been awful. So we got a lot of awesome things happening. We're getting ready for a new summer series that's going to hit the Sandbox Podcast. It's going to be called Creative Camp, and we're going to be pumped about this. Not entirely sure yet the exact way we're going to manifest it in the podcast, but as we figure that out, we're going to let you know. So just to let you know that's going to be coming. That's technically going to be our season 2 of the Sandbox Podcast. Season 2 will technically be our summer season, and that summer season is going to be called Creative Camp. Now in Creative Camp, what we're going to do is basically it's going to be a camp for creative things, creative ideas, creative perspectives, all that kind of stuff. So even though we're a leadership podcast and we don't really just hammer in on just the creative element, we're going to hammer on the creative element just for the camp season of summer, and then we'll do some other awesome things as well. We're hearing another group of you telling us awesome things about the playground rules, that it's helping you and your teams. That's awesome. If you haven't heard about that, if you go to harpandbold.org/sandbox or just harpandbold.org, you'll see a little sandbox link. You just click that link and it'll take you to everything you need to get. You have info there. And then there's the playground rules. Playground rules, again, for those of you who have not heard, it's basically our free training sessions. It's the first one we've done. Basically, there's printouts. You can go through the videos. You can do them, 5 days in a row, or you can just knock them out immediately, or however you and your team want to do them. We've heard some great things, and hopefully we'll figure out a way to do some future ones to continue the process. We're definitely learning how to do this. Sandbox Podcast was a creative experiment that nobody expected to do well. I'm saying nobody. I guess I didn't expect to do well. And then I definitely did not think I would keep doing it, because consistency has definitely been one of my words of 2019, if not the word, because I'm shocked I am still doing these podcasts and that I still have something to say. And so we're going to move forward with that. So if you're liking these podcasts, if you like Playground Rules, please let us know. There's even an area on the website you can let us know if there's specific podcast topics you would like us to cover. In the meantime, subscribe, let us know where you're listening from, anything we can do better. I think so far we got that 5 stars, so no negative reviews. So, I am peachy king on that situation. But moving on today, what we are going to talk about is ugly babies. Yes, you heard that correctly. Today we are going to be talking about ugly babies. Last week was very deep and very solemn. This week we're going to talk about something that's also pretty deep, but from a little different slant. And by ugly babies, this is what I mean. I want you to close your eyes. Well, don't close your eyes because some of you drive when you listen to this, but close your imagination eyes, imaginatively. And imagine that you're having a conversation with somebody you know, somebody you don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. And as you're talking, they're holding a baby. They just had this baby. And you do all the random conversations you have when somebody first has a baby and you're stuck in a conversation with them. Oh, you had a baby. How old are they? Blah, 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 blah. And the person with the baby is like, oh, aren't they so beautiful? And you're like, oh yes, they are so beautiful. I just really think that they look like me. Oh yes, they look like you. And the parent just compliments and talks about how amazing that child is that they are holding. And you, being polite in most cases, just agree and agree and agree. Yes, such a beautiful baby, such a beautiful baby. And everything they ask about their baby, you say yes, especially if it's positive. Do you think my baby is talented? Yes. Do you think my baby is smart? Yes. Do you think my baby has great potential? Yes. You just, you're rolling the positivity train up the mountain. Now, can you imagine what would happen at the end of all of that if the person would look at you and go, oh, well, do you want my baby? Then you would have a very awkward moment, and naturally, I'm assuming, you would go, well, no, I don't want your baby. And they would be like, well, why don't you want my baby? You just said my baby was smart. You just said my baby had potential. You just said my baby looked beautiful, was very calm, didn't cry a lot. You just said all these amazing things for my baby, and now you're saying that you don't want my baby. How does that work? And through the conversation, you basically arrive at the point where you say to the individual, well, the main reason I don't want your baby is because I want a baby of my own. Your baby is awesome, but that's your baby. That's not my baby. And as amazing as that baby is, and as many accolades as I could pour over that baby, it's never going to change the fact that there's nothing innately of myself in that baby. That's your baby, not my baby. So as many compliments as I can pour out, it's never going to change the fact that I don't want that baby. And when we're talking about ugly babies, that's what we're talking about. Because just like in life, in business, in leadership, in ministry, and whatever you want to call it, nobody wants you to tell them that they have an ugly baby. And when I say ugly baby, this is what I mean. In most cases, when you would tell that individual, no, I don't want that baby, their response to you, even if it may not be vocally, inside they would think to themselves, oh, they must think my baby's ugly. They lied. They didn't really think my baby was smart. They didn't really think my baby had potential. They didn't really think all of the complimentary things that they said about my baby. I bet they think that my baby is stupid, that it doesn't have a future, that it's ugly. And that's what I'm saying. And it's not you overtly being like, no, your baby's ugly. It's the fact of you not wanting to take ownership of somebody's baby. To them, they transcribe it in their imagination that what you're really saying is that they have an ugly baby. So when we say ugly babies, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the silent imagination conversation that happens in people when people don't want to take ownership over the things that they feel the most passionate about. That's what we mean by ugly babies. Now, I think one of the main question is, how do you lead with other leaders without taking responsibility for their babies? That's one of the big things. And everybody has somebody that leads above them. As much as we may lead around other leaders, somebody always answers to somebody above them. So your CEO, their company is the baby. The executive pastor, the church is their baby. Now, so your babies may be, my baby is a choir, your baby may be small groups, your baby may be the marketing department, your baby may be working on, human resources. Everybody has babies, and the babies may be bigger, smaller, what have you. But the point is since we all answer up to somebody, and since we also answer to people besides each other, we're constantly bombarded with the idea of how do you lead with other leaders without taking responsibility for their babies. And obviously the answer is not for everybody to throw out their babies and care about your baby. And I think the biggest thing to understand in all of this, because it's very hard to get excited about something that doesn't belong to you. Something that you didn't create, something that you didn't grow, something that you didn't nurture, something that you didn't pour your energy and time into. It's very hard if you're hired at an organization, if you've joined up with a team, it's very hard to just blink your eyes and then all the things that these people poured so much of themselves into for you to have equal bearings. And so it makes a very tense environment to lead with and to work with, because it's because as much as you do care and as much as you want to do help, the fact that you don't really want to take full ownership over that baby since it doesn't belong to you can cause tension. Now, maybe that tension manifests itself in just awkwardness, or maybe it manifests itself in actual verbal altercations. But to really figure that out, I think you really have to search in yourself why that is. Again, like most cases, I think it changes for everybody. I remember years and years ago, I had a friend when I went to Lee University. I had a friend named Courtney. And Courtney was just awesome at all kinds of different things and was very creative and all that kind of stuff. And she really had a specific job she was looking at. And she was getting ready to graduate from Lee. I think in public relations. I'm not completely sure, but I'm almost positive in public relations. And this was a public relations-esque job, but it was also kind of like half PR, half ministry. But the ministry specifically was a global well, it is a global ministry. Uh, a whole lot of resources, a whole lot of influence, just a great reputation, like just a lot of things going for it. And she really wanted to work for that organization. And like most people, uh, she kind of got bombarded by a whole lot of people being like, you're aiming too high. You probably should do something else, a little bit more that makes sense right out of college because you're not really qualified yet. You only have like 2 internships. And she's just trying to figure this all out. And I hate bullies, even bullies with good intentions. So I was like, bump that, Courtney, you need to go for this job. You need to do it. Long story short, she meets, it's like a God thing. She meets the right people at the right time. She gets this amazing position. So she moves off and she's doing it full time. I move off. I'm doing some stuff full time. And I happen to be in the city she lives in. And we decided to, meet up, get coffee, catch up. What's new in your life? That kind of thing. I guess a year and a half or so, maybe even 2 years have passed. And we were kind of discussing what's new in life, what have I missed, all that kind of stuff. And I was asking her how the job was, and she was like, "It's great. I have a lot of favor. They're very kind to me. All the things that you would want to hear." And at the end of it, she made the statement, "I'm thinking about leaving, though. I'm thinking about leaving the job and doing something different." And I was shocked, mainly because, first of all, it was something she wanted to do, and if I was in her position, I would imagine that I would naturally want to stay there 20 years because the ministry was that awesome. It was just as legit can get. And I was like, this is a job you stay at for the rest of your life because this is amazing. And and so I kind of became like, when she first wanted to go for the job, she had a whole bunch of people being like, I don't think that'll work. And I kind of became one of those people in that conversation. I was like, you're crazy. You need to stay here. This is a good thing. And she made a statement that blew me away, and I've never forgotten it. And so often in life, I've gone back to this conversation. And she goes, yeah, she was like, what they do is amazing. Their vision is amazing. The way they're implementing it is amazing. Obviously, God is with them and what they're doing. But at the end of the day, it really bugs me that it's not mine. And I would rather have something that's small, not as successful, not as much money, not as much notoriety, not as much, shine and glimmer, not as much an audience, all that kind of stuff, and yet it still be mine. And it so shook my brain because I couldn't, well, for one, never in my life had I heard somebody talk about a job like that. Following that, I couldn't imagine somebody giving up something that amazing for something, who knows what it would be. But at the time, it looks like it doesn't matter how awesome it is, it's never going to be as awesome as where you are. But to her, she had so made up in her mind an idea of what could be, that even though this baby of this organization was beautiful, amazing, everyone loved this baby, she could not shake that baby wasn't her baby. And even if everybody didn't love her baby the same, at least it would be her baby. There's another story of another one of my friends named Kyle, and he was really into media and film and things of that nature, and never really had too much of a heart specifically for missions. But God started really doing a work in his heart about specific missions, but he didn't think he was supposed to be a missionary per se. So he was really going back and forth with God, trying to figure out, not arguing, but trying to work out the details of what it would look like with his major and his passions of film and media, and how he could use those gifts and passions to help do missions. That he didn't just have to, move to some faraway land. He could do missions a different way, a unique way. And God really started giving him amazing strategies and all these things that he had never really thought of, connecting to missions in that specific way, and he was very excited about it. And so he came up with this very specific, kind of like a business plan esque, and he sat down with a very put together, well established missions organization that had a lot of money, had a lot of resources, and could really help catapult and start what he wanted to do with this new missions idea that him and God were kind of creating together. And he went through the whole thing. He worked really hard, and he presented it, and he went through all the money angles of it and how long it would take and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of it, the person in charge didn't really say anything. And when the presentation was over, the man looked at Kyle and said, "I believe you've been watching way too many Feed the Children commercials. And I don't think anything that you're talking about right now will ever work. I think it'll only appeal to young people, and young people don't have money. I think it will ostracize older people, and older people have all the money. So I think this idea is never going to fly in a million years. This just isn't going to work. Whatever idea you think you've come up with that's cutting edge, it's I mean, it's in essence stupid." And he was very patronizing, very rude. Um, Maybe not because he was trying to be rude, but he was rude nonetheless. And I was having a conversation with Kyle. Again, I hate bullies. I don't know what it is. I don't like somebody butting into somebody else's business and telling them what they can and cannot do in the sense of reaching far and dreaming big. I don't like that. So, being me, I'm like, well, bump that, Kyle. Just start it yourself. Just do it. Whatever he said you can't do, just do it. And a few months went by, and then another few months went by, and people were handing Kyle large checks because they felt like God told them to do it. And he was buying cameras and buying computers and editing equipment, and then specific suitcases to transport audio equipment with, and all this kind of stuff. And now he has a full blown multinational organization that creates documentaries, that create albums, they do all kinds of different things. And that's his baby. But somebody, you know, was trying to cheat him out of the ability to have his own baby. Maybe not directly, but definitely indirectly or subconsciously, or however you want to word it. And I think that's just really a part of it, is the beauty of understanding how to deal with people who get easily offended, that we're not wanting to take ownership over their babies, is understanding that we are supposed to have our own babies. There is something, it may be this year, it may be in 10 years from now, but there is something that you are supposed to create, something that you are supposed to grow, something that you are supposed to nurture and build and pour yourself into. So the reason other babies will never satisfy belonging to you is because you are supposed to have your own baby. And like those stories, it may not be, your baby may not supposed to be this grand thing over here. Your baby is supposed to specifically be this and this and this and this. You never know the fullness of why it's like that. One of my favorite stories is hearing about a specific evangelist who traveled and did all these tent meetings, and he felt like nobody was getting saved, nothing was working. And in one random meeting, this person comes up and gets saved, and that person's name was Billy Graham. And then Billy Graham goes on to be Billy Graham. But the person who led Billy Graham to the Lord was not another Billy Graham. It was somebody being faithful in something that they didn't think was big, in some cases didn't even think was working, but they stayed faithful, endured in it, and out of that, you never know what could come from that, and then come from that, and then come from that, and then come from that. It's finding ownership in what the baby that you are supposed to have. And you have to be okay with that your baby may not be able to grow where you are. And that's okay. In Courtney's case, she felt like there was a baby she was supposed to have, and if she was really supposed to do it at that time, the baby couldn't grow where she was at. And you have to be okay with that. In other cases, you have to almost, like Kyle, you had to create an environment for that baby to grow, because that baby doesn't really have any siblings. There's nothing like that baby that's happening right now, or if so, you can't find them. You can't find them on Instagram, you can't find them on YouTube, so you're almost having to make the rules up as you go. You have to figure that stuff out, because in the meantime, you have to find a way to let everybody know that their baby matters, even though you don't want to take their baby home. You know what I'm saying? And in different ways, try to make it as practical as well as, ethereal and quote unquote deep. It's everything from, your baby may not be my baby, but I can buy your baby some awesome clothes. I can take your baby to its first trip to McDonald's. I can do something for that baby to show my care and appreciation for that baby without taking ownership for that baby. So I think in the teams we lead and the people we lead with and the people we lead under, we need to find ways to really, exude that we really show honor and appreciation for the babies around us, even though those aren't, they're not our babies. And it's tricky because a lot of times we hear phrases like, you really got to take ownership. If you're going to succeed, you got to take ownership. So if you are a janitor, you got to take ownership over the fact that you're a janitor, and you got to wash those floors like you own the building, and blah blah blah. And I think there's a lot of awesome truth in that, but I think the fact is that you have to honor that place you're in, not because you have to imagine that you own it, but you have to remind yourself that there is something that you will own one day. So the reason you have to treat this moment important, and the reason you have to treat this baby with value even though it's not yours, is because you are learning how to treat your future baby with proper value. And you're also teaching yourself how to deal with people who do not know how to treat your future baby with value. So you may yourself know how to treat your baby correctly, but then you are now going to be on the other side of the fence where you're going to have to remind yourself that somebody not wanting ownership of your baby does not mean that they think your baby is ugly, or that you are now having to trick yourself to convince yourself that your baby is not ugly. You have to understand that the reason your baby matters is because it's your baby. The reason that somebody else is very passionate about their baby is because it's their baby. Nobody wants to be told that their baby is ugly. So, because of that, you have to remind yourself how many times in even practical conversations do you have a conversation with somebody who's just had a baby? Oh, it's changed my life. Just you wait. When you have a kid, oh, it's going to be totally different. You just can't imagine. That's what it's like in teams and organizations and people that you lead around and with and under. It's that type of thing. You don't really, you get it. You appreciate the baby. That's cool. Yeah, I guess the baby's cute. Yeah, I guess the baby's awesome. Whatever. But when you have a baby, the baby is everything. It's your world. All you think about is how to take care of it and to give it better opportunities, and to make sure it has the best clothes, and to make sure it has the best food, and to make sure that everybody sees the best that could come from your kid. That's the way it is. Now, maybe it's a business, maybe it's a church, maybe it's a band, maybe, you want to just start something small that nobody's ever started before. The way to make sure that happens the best way it could is you need to show proper appreciation for the people around you, because in the middle space before you get to have your own baby, for many of us, we're in a place where we have to be around people where we just babysit 100 other babies that we could care less about. And how do we survive in that? You survive in that by making sure that those babies know that they have our full attention and appreciation. And then when the time comes for you to have your baby, whether it means you have to leave that environment or that city or that church or whatever it may be, you know that you've left giving proper appreciation. Sorry about that. Those are all the ugly baby haters trying to call me right now in the middle of this podcast, but they will not prevail. So, that to say, appreciate the people around you. They're not out to get you because they can't stand you and all these things. Nobody wants to be told they have ugly babies. Make sure in your subconscious attitude, in your tone of voice when you talk, in the activities that you're involved with, make sure that nobody has room to point at it, and make sure that they don't have the ability to say, somehow you're not saying that my baby's ugly, but I feel like you're telling me that my baby's ugly. Or I think that you think that my baby is ugly. People love what they pour themselves into. So in some cases, maybe you just need to pour more into the people that are pouring into the baby. You need to pour yourself out in appreciation and value, and then you will see a drastic difference. I promise you. You will relieve yourself of so much unnecessary stress and frustration, and we will all be better for it. So, that is today's episode on ugly babies. I hope it helps. I promise you, if you put it into action, it actually will help. And I look forward to all the future babies you are going to have. I definitely look forward to the future babies I will have, both in, actual baby flesh and, organizational whimsy, however you would word it. So, Thank you so much for listening today. We hope this helped. Remember, subscribe, rate us, go online, harpandbowl.org/sandbox. Check out Playground Rules. Let us know what we can do to help you lead around those, under those, above those, that we would all be better for it. Remember, play nice in the sandbox.